Όπως καταλαβαίνετε, προχωρούμε στη δεύτερη παρουσίαση. As you understand, we're going to start the second presentation of this session. Our speaker is Peter Howorth, publisher of the Mount Athos map. We're eager to hear you, Peter.
I'm a little concerned. I've given our friends over here with the electronics a bit of a challenge. And also the ladies are giving you maps, so if you get bored with me, you can look at the maps instead. We're going to try and make this little VR thing work. Does it go? Go, make it go, please. Perfect, thank you. It does stop. It's quite a privilege to speak to you today, but it's quite difficult after Andrew's performance. I asked Chris what he wanted me to speak about, and he said topography, which is pretty boring. And I asked him why he asked that. He said it was because it was a Greek word. I actually rather like the word topophilia, which means love of a place, which develops over involvement with this place. Now, I have to start with a story. My late father-in-law had a cousin called Sandy Thomas, who was also a New Zealander. He was involved in the battle for Crete as a young man, and later on joined the British Army and became a brigadier general and the final commander of the Far Eastern British forces. But he had a bit of an adventure. He was wounded and captured during the Battle for Crete, and captured by the Germans and eventually got to a prison hospital here in Thessaloniki, from which he escaped. He then walked across the top of Greece to the Holy Mountain, where he was looked after by the monks, the right monks at the time. He had bright red hair and was 6'4", 1.98 meters tall. So walking across Greece like that would have been difficult in wartime. And then after he'd been on the Holy Mountain and his leg had improved a little bit, he and a couple of friends stole a boat, got to Turkey, and thence to Syria, where he was reunited with his military unit and his brother. His brother was the first person he saw when he got to Syria. And his family had given him up for dead. And he wrote a book about this, but the publishers asked him not to put the bit in about meeting his brother, because they said that would make it seem like fiction, which is an interesting response. He decided to republish this book to make a bit of money, and he lived in Australia, came across to Christchurch quite a few times, and because I had a computer, he suggested that I draw the maps for the book, and I had no idea what was involved in that. But I had just retired, and I hadn't read the book, but I sort of said I knew all about this sort of thing, and traced a few maps. Now, somewhere that's my first effort, and that's dear old Sandy. But I got fascinated with the idea of the Holy Mountain, and when I found out that Sandy's grandson Tyson went on an expedition with an ex-military British fellow called Chris Paul, I got very jealous. So I thought I'd have to go and have a look at this place. So I discovered the Friend of Mount Athos and went on a path clearing exhibition. Where's he hiding now? So off I went with a pack the size of a portable lavatory, yes. And I think it's only fair to say that everything you do with or for or because of the Holy Mountain develops a tale behind it, and it becomes quite significant. But I think before I go any further, if we can have a look at the next slide. Yeah, that doesn't show up very well. Anyway, there are two people I've really got to thank who sort of created the environment where I could perform. One of them is Professor Paul Milonas, who he was an architect who created the most extraordinary set of drawings of the monastery and a map, but the detailed drawings of all the monasteries is a particularly fabulous thing to have. It's a set of 36 A1 drawings, wonderful inspiration. And the other fellow is Reinhold Zwerger, that Andrew mentioned, who was an Austrian graphic artist, I think he was, but he developed a map by taking an altimeter and a compass and walking the paths. And then he traced that by guess and by God onto a set of contours that had been developed in the Second World War. His was the primary map for many, many years, and a wonderful, wonderful production. And you can still buy it, which is marvellous. This is long before GPS and satellites and all that sort of thing. Now, I'm not sure what... Anyway, during that first path clearing expedition where I was throwing branches and rocks down hills and things, it was absolutely marvellous. The aforesaid David Bain approached me and said, "Why did you come to the Holy Mountain?" And I said to him, "Because I drew a map." He went, "Ah!" And within a few days I had a CD full of GPS tracks. And he asked me, "Can you help?" And I said, "Oh, it can take 6 weeks, I'll draw a map." I'd never drawn a map in my life before, a proper map. And I eventually got back to New Zealand and started to worry about this promise. So I rang the New Zealand Cartographic Society, an august professional body, and told them of my problem. And they listened, and then they said to me, "Do you know, Peter, in 6 weeks we have an international conference. And this is not only the New Zealand Cartographic Society, but the Mountain Cartography Group of the International Cartographic Society. Why don't you come and give us a paper?" Well, goodness gracious me. I don't think I did terribly well, but the main thing is I discovered that when you deal with people at the top of their profession, they're not interested in backbiting and stamping up here. They're genuinely interested in helping. And I've made the most extraordinary friends among these people. I've since been to international conferences and given papers all over the world with these people. It has been an absolutely delightful time. Don't forget, I was drawing my first map when I had reached the age of 60 and had retired. And then, of course, I needed an awful lot of help with the Holy Mountain. And again, I've got to thank Dimitri Bakalis, or is he gone away? Hiding? Hello, young man. Yes. And a fellow, Roland Bytons, who's not here, and all the other members, because we've now developed a map after all these years that has a gazetteer with over 500 place names on it. I print these maps at home, and I've sold 1,200, 1,500. I've sold them to over 43 countries. All the sales have involved correspondence with some really wonderful people who are interested, genuinely keen, and they seem all to be honest, which is quite a nice thing about the group of people that are involved with the Holy Mountain. Now, I don't know, can we try the slide after this, please? It's, no, oh, that's just my, no, the next one, please. after. Now, I have printed this out. I have some copies, and I'll explain it a little bit. What I've tried to do is to show a bit of church history, the timeline of what happened on the Holy Mountain, beginning from prehistory, and then the world history. And what it will show, if you see it, is it shows this extraordinary persistence of the Holy Mountain, how it dominates everything else that ever happened in the world. From the time when Xerxes tried to dig this ditch across the top, Xerxes Canal, which silted up after 2 years and was never used again. And then, of course, Alexander the Great turned up, and what he said when shown the Holy Mountain, I perceive that if anyone leads a colony to that place, his judgment will be blamed. For just as a child when born, if it lacks the nurse's milk, cannot be fed, nor led up the staircase of a growing life, so a city without cornfields and their produce abounding within its ramparts cannot grow, nor become populous without an abundance of food, nor maintain its people without a supply. Therefore, just as I think your planning worthy of approval, so, in my judgment, the site is worthy of disapproval. And then some bright spark suggested he carved the end of the Holy Mountain into an image of Alexander the Great, and he was not impressed with that idea at all. So, the Holy Mountain was left for our Lord. Wonderful. Now, that other chart does show an awful lot of history, but without being able to see it on the screen, I think it's better off you look at paper. But there were monks on the Holy Mountain by 934, at least, because they are referred to as a very old group of Lavra. In 963, of course, the Lavra was founded, and then Iveron, and away we went, and all the monasteries slowly developed in the 14th century. And it was a stunning place. The population, you can go back to that other big map. This is the curve of the population of the Holy Mountain. It's very approximate. This is around the First World War here, and there were all sorts of problems. But through Turkish rule, the Romans, everybody, it's always been there. And then you get something like the British Empire, which is about that long, compared to the Holy Mountain. It's just a staggering thought. It's saying it's not working very well. And it was wonderful that the first proper road wasn't built until 1963. My work with the path clearing has meant that I really do cherish the footpaths, and I'm devastated by a lot of the modern roading, which is not really up to scratch, because the preservation of this amazing place has to be taken extremely seriously. Now, there is also a network of old-fashioned calderini, which are being ruined, and again, this is something else that's got to be dealt with. So I will continue doing my work. Now, one of the problems is that people can't read maps anymore. I meet people who say, I didn't know it was going to be so steep, and the contours are quite clear and all that sort of thing. And they've got the highest modern, most expensive equipment, which tends to lead them astray. And I have noticed that when people use maps properly, when they engage in being a pilgrim, that they engage with the land. And it is an extraordinary thing to meet people who have honestly, truly engaged in the land in their pilgrimage, because I know then that any time they think of that piece of land, they cannot be indifferent to it. And they will worry about it and be concerned. And the correspondence I have with all my map users from all around the world indicates that there's a huge cohort of people who absolutely have a commitment to the Holy Mountain. And I don't think the Epistasia and many of the monks are aware of this extraordinary love out there for this place and how much people would do to defend the Holy Mountain. Us men make extraordinary good friendships and relationships on the Holy Mountain that transcend everything else that happens off the Holy Mountain. We don't discuss who's got the biggest chainsaw or who's got a faster car. We talk about our hearts. And this again is another gift that the Holy Mountain gives us all. Now, I love watching buildings being restored. I love watching the old skills being used. But the way society is changing does disturb me a bit. And this is the... Where's it gone? Yeah, it's this modern attitude of entitlement, particularly among young people. They expect special treatment or privileges without any effort. And when there are welfare issues where there's government funding given or public funds spent on something, a lot of people feel they have a right to avail themselves of that facility. And the Holy Mountain must be protected against that sort of attitude. I don't know how you can do it. And the other thing is, I come from New Zealand, which is a long way away, but it shakes a lot like Greece does with earthquakes. And I've taken a lot of interest in how societies respond to tragedies like earthquakes and major problems. And I've read a book by a wonderful American essayist called Rebecca Solnit called Paradise Built in Hell. And in it she discusses the natural communities that form after tragedies and how wonderful these communities are, how strong they are, and how well they serve themselves. And she counterbands that with the problems that arise when unknown emergency services suddenly dump themselves on existing communities. And I would like the Holy Mountain to realize that it has this natural community available all around, from people all around the world in the event of need. I know they would be stunned by the generosity of people available to assist the Holy Mountain in any major work it needs to do. I might have to give up there, I think. But it's the best place for having male relationships I've ever come across. But I will not be going back, it's just too far. It has been extraordinarily good fun with people like Andrew and Dimitri. And I've made relationships that will never go out. Does anyone want to ask me anything? And enjoy the maps. Young lady, you had a question.
Yes. Nothing compares, but when the pilgrims are visiting Santiago de Compostela in Spain, they are boarded with a small shell.
Yeah.
Would it be a good idea when we visit not only clothing, but something environmental aboard, like a landmark or something? Would it be a good idea?
I have got no. It's a very interesting idea because I would. I think of what I've taken back, other than T-shirts. I'm not allowed to take any more. But things like seeds, vegetable seeds, something like that. I'm sure there are many things that you could have to remind you of the wonders of the place and the people. There are wonderful books written. I will not recommend one that we have done first. I've found the best thing I've taken back for me is making friends with the monks, some of the monks. Not many, but enough. And then writing and keeping correspondence going. My wife has been to Women's Monastery, stays there all the way from New Zealand. Oh, did you see me? No, the cruise is very good, but the writings of some of the elders is Elder Porphyrius, Elder Paisios, absolutely wonderful stuff, and those people are with us all still, even now. It's wonderful. That's a pleasure.
Thank you. Oh, Peter, thank you very much, because you added a lot of emotion to a technical presentation. Thank you. Thank you for this. I understand. I'm a Mount Athos person, I spent 40 years in Mount Athos, but I understand very well. And what I would like to say to our young lady, as you said, most of the people that visit Mount Athos, they're pilgrims. They go for religious reasons, not for conservation. I don't think anybody thinks of conservation. This is something that we need to promote and encourage people that, look, you're coming to a peninsula where 93% of the land is forested. It's an ecosystem. Nowhere in the country we have such coverage, okay? So we still have a lot of work to do, and all these people help a lot, and we thank you very much for the work you are doing.
Okay. I was told it's not you who decides to go to Mount Athos, it is God.
Yes.
And I sat on the beach one day in front of the Viennese said to a monk, and I'm like, what things am I doing? I can all this way and go back and come back and all year mark. He said,
Oh, yeah, Mike.
He said to me, I was grizzling about the air miles, I was clocking up, and he said to me, Peter, when you're in the hands of the living God, it gets a bit scary. And I take that with me everywhere I go. Falling off